Hello, this is MrChabry, and today we're going to talk about the dragon types that you can get in Pokemon X and Pokemon Y. What you're going to notice with these dragon types is all of them have really decent stats somewhere. Um, there's a lot of really good dragon types. In this generation, they did add fairy type to try to kind of lower the playing field and make it more balanced because these dragons were so powerful. However, some of these dragons still can hold their own, and they still have options that they can do to help them fight the fairies. And let's start out with the first dragon type that you're going to come across is Haxorus. This thing is a beast when we look at its attack stat. 147 is great. 97 speed is also good. This thing can hit pretty fast, hit pretty hard. 90 defense means it can take a few hits too. And if we go ahead and scroll down to its move set, because this is where you're going to see some interesting things with each of these Pokemon. They all have good moves. I do want to point out first, with this Pokemon, it has such a high attack stat, but you do also have access to Swords Dance. So even with that super high attack stat, you can make it even more outrageous. And that's a move I would say you could throw on this and make it work. Outrage. If you can boost up and you know that there is no fairy type coming in, Swords Dance plus Outrage just destroys everything. Now, you don't want to necessarily get locked into that because it would be easy to outplay you. So maybe instead you want to go with Dragon Claw, and that would be also a good option. Dragon Dance is also a good setup move. If instead of 2 attack boosts, you want an attack and speed boost, and that would help out too. And in terms of coverage, this thing gets great coverage. Earthquake is a great coverage option. Shadow Claw can help you out. X-Scissor maybe. Poison Jab is something I would suggest because of those fairy types. So yeah, this thing does get some great moves, great stats. You can set up if you want. You can go in and just attack right away. I think Haxorus is a solid dragon. Next up is Salamence. Now, Dragon Flying is a good typing too. It does give you a few weaknesses, so keep that in mind. Because otherwise, Dragon is only weak to Ice, Dragon, and Fairy. You do gain a Rock weakness here, but you also gain an immunity to Ground. So maybe that's worth it for you. Intimidate is a great ability here. That's going to help you with survivability. And I would say that is great because you already have decent bulk. 95 HP plus 80 defense and 80 special defense means you're able to take some hits. And with that Intimidate, you're able to take hits even better. So you're solidly able to take hits. Plus, you do have great attack options with a 135 attack. And you can go special attack as well with a 110 special attack. And you are decently quick with a 100 speed. So, great stats. Let's look at the move pool because that's where we'll see a lot of the kind of where the shine is in some of these dragons. And well, Salamence does not disappoint. Of course, Dragon Claw is later game, but you do get up to that point, get some options that you can throw on there. Dragon Breath might be something of use because you can make special moves work. Earthquake is, you've got that. That's great. Aerial Ace gives you Flying Stab, and really, Fly might be your better choice of Flying Stab because that's kind of the downside with a lot of some of these dragon types that are also flying. They are kind of limited on their Flying Stab, so I would say Fly is probably their best option. You get Zen Headbutt, which is good. You get Fire Fang, Thunder Fang, also good. And other moves such as Stone Edge, I would say that is good too. Shadow Claw is good. Yeah, and you get some good options with this Pokemon too. So I would say this is another solid choice here. Salamence, really great. Dragalge, now this is a Pokemon that's different than a lot of the other dragon types. This is a dragon that wants to be a bulky wall, and I feel like it can actually do it pretty well. Poison and Dragon is a good type combination when you're trying to be defensive. With that, you're only weak to Psychic, Dragon, Ice, and Ground. You have resistance to Fire, Water, Electric, Grass, Fighting, Poison, Bug. So, good type combination for what it's trying to do. Good bulk with 90 defense, 123 special defense, and 97 special attack means it can actually do some damage back. And in terms of moves, I would say your best option is moves like Sludge Bomb and Dragon Pulse. But you can also give it something like Thunderbolt for coverage. So this thing has some things that it can work with. I would say this is a solid pick right here. Dragalge can hold its own. Kingdra, I feel like Kingdra, out of all the dragon types, this is the first one we come across that might be kind of, you know, difficult to place. And that's because it's got a weird stat distribution. Let's look at what this thing brings that is good. Water Dragon, now that is one, I would say that's one of the best types, because you're only weak to Dragon and Fairy at that point. And that's good. You also have Swift Swim, which will boost up your speed, and really that's where you need some of your boost, because 85 speed's not the best. Attack, defense, special attack, and special defense are all 95, so that's decent. It can take hits, it can hit back. Move pool wise, I feel like this thing shines a little bit better at being a physical attacker, but you can make some of these, I mean, a special attacker rather. You can make some of these physical attacks work though. So move pool wise, Hydro Pump is great, Dragon Pulse is great. You can throw Dragon Dance on this thing if you want a physical set. Ice Beam, I would say, is a great coverage. Rain Dance, if you want to be the one boosting up your own speed. Scald is good too, if you want to burn. Flash Cannon's good coverage. And if you're willing to breed, you can get things like Outrage if you're wanting to do a physical attacker. And then special moves, Draco, Meteor. This is one of the first dragon types I would suggest throwing Draco on there. Actually, Dragalge probably use a Draco too. Salamence probably could too, but Salamence wants to be a physical attacker. So I would say this is a solid pick here. Just keep in mind the interplay with these stats. Tyrantrum, this is a physical attacking Pokemon. It's got a unique typing, which is Rock Dragon. And it's got pretty good stats. 121 attack, hits hard, and it's got decent bulk at 119. We've looked at this one a little bit more in the rock type video, but I do want to bring up some of the points. Dragon Claw is probably your go-to move on this thing. Earthquake for coverage. Stone Edge for physical. If you're willing to breed, you can get Dragon Dance, and that would make this thing even more of a threat. So yeah, this thing is a solid Pokemon too. I would say this, yeah, solid Pokemon too. Flygon, out of all the dragon types, this is probably the one that kind of has disappointing stats. 100 attack isn't the best. 100 speed is decent. It can outspeed a few things. But I feel like this is a Pokemon that it really does need Dragon Dance to make it work. Ground and Dragon is a cool type combination. We're going to see another Pokemon with that I think actually sports that type combination better than Flygon. But when we look at the moves, you know, remember, physical attacker is what you want, and you can throw things like Dragon Claw on here. Of course, Earthquake is a must. You can try to run a special set, but and that's the thing. It's got really good special moves, but special attack's only 80. So even though it gets good coverage with that, I do think it's still better to go physical. Bulldoze, like I said, Earthquake was great. Stone Edge to hit some of those flying types. I still think you can make it work, but this is probably the first one that I would say is more of a challenge. The other one so far, it's like if you want to use it, go ahead. They'll do great. This one, it's a little bit more iffy. If you want a dragon ground type that's even better than Flygon, well, I think Garchomp here is probably the better of the two. Look at these stats. 130 attack, 102 speed. And it does have good bulk too at 108. So this thing does everything Flygon does, but better. The only difference is you're not immune to ground type moves. But I feel like that's a good trade. Plus with this Pokemon, you also get a Mega Form, which is Mega Garchomp now. Look at these stats. 170 attack, 120 special attack. You can actually run a special attacking Mega Garchomp, and it'll work. So yeah, and it's got really good bulk too. You lose a little bit in speed, but that's also, you know, up to you. Do you want something faster, or do you want something that's more tankier and can hit harder? I think both of these are solid picks. Garchomp's just one of those Pokemon that's just so versatile. Bulky, offensive, fast, slow, whatever you need, Garchomp can do it. Move pool wise, great move pool. Of course, being Dragon Ground, you want Dragon Claw, you want Earthquake. You also get things like Crunch for coverage. Shadow Claw could be good coverage too. Stone Edge, good coverage. You also get Swords Dance. This is a Pokemon that I think later on they gave it Dragon Dance, which is even better. But Swords Dance, hey, this will also work as well. So, solid pick right here. Garchomp does a lot. Goodra is a Pokemon that wants to be a special wall, and I feel like this one actually does it better than Dragalge. Let's go ahead and look at what it does. So, it doesn't resist as much as Dragalge, but it does have some things that it can bring to the table. Look at that, 150 special defense stat. That's really good right there. This thing can take hits all day, and it can hit back with good special attack and attack. It is on the slower side, but I feel like with that bulk, it's okay that it's on the slower side. And if we look at the move pool, I mean, this thing does get some interesting things that it can do. I mean, remember, special attack's higher, but you could probably run a physical attack set as well. So I would say Dragon Pulse is more likely your go-to. Sludge Wave is good coverage. Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Blizzard, or Ice Beam. So yeah, this thing does get good coverage. If you do want a physical set, well then Earthquake would be good there. Dragon Tail might be your only really good or no, you can get Outrage with this thing. So Outrage is good. Yeah, so this is a Pokemon that I feel is also solid. You can get Power Whip for coverage if you want a physical set. I feel like I do prefer the special set because you get slightly more in terms of special. But, you know, this is a Pokemon that can work pretty well with both physical and special. I still think it's a solid pick. Noivern, this Pokemon is meant to be fast, and it does that well. Special attack, 97, it's decent. Flying Dragon, I do feel like Salamence is the better. If so far we're looking at the Flying Dragon type, Salamence is better than this thing. But, hey, this thing has some things that it can do pretty well. For instance, it's faster, and you can take that to your advantage. Dragon Pulse is good. Hurricane is good. I don't think Salamence gets Hurricane. Yeah, this would be a better special flying dragon type, which is really good. Boom Burst is a cool move because it has such a high power. Roost, if you want to heal yourself up. And you do get things like Psychic, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower for coverage. Yeah, so this is also another solid pick. So far, pretty much most of them have been solid picks. Altaria, now this is another dragon flying, but this thing, I feel like this one is probably even below Flygon in terms of being suggestible. Because at least Flygon had things that it can actually do to, you know, threaten the opponent. Altaria is wanting to be a bulky Pokemon, but it doesn't quite have enough bulk to do that completely well. So you kind of struggle in taking some of those hits. Now, if we look at the move pool, you know, with Flygon, the thing to remember is that, you know, its attack and special attack are both the same. So you can also, you know, you can run it either way. I would say a good move is Dragon Dance because that helps it out in terms of its speed, which it kind of needs in its attack. Dragon Pulse is a good special move. Moonblast is pretty good too. I think Moonblast, is it? Yeah, so it does get Moonblast here. Ice Beam, it does get good special coverage with Ice Beam, Flamethrower. Earthquake is great if you want a physical set. Dazzling Gleam if you would rather, you know, do that instead of waiting all the way to Moonblast. So yeah, it's got some options move pool wise. I do think that it is a Pokemon that kind of struggles though. Yeah, so this is a Pokemon that might be one that, think of it more of a challenge run Pokemon. Druddigon, now Druddigon's a Pokemon that, you know, stats wise, it looks like it wants to be a bulky Pokemon too. 120 attack is great, 90, and both defenses are pretty good. It's super slow though, and that's kind of the thing that hurts it, I feel like, the most. You know, Rough Skin is good if you want a physical defensive set, but I don't know if it does that completely well either. So yeah, 120 attack is good. I feel like, though, some of the dragon types we've already looked at already outclass this thing, but I still will look at some of the things that this thing can do. And I would say a physical attacker is good. Dragon Claw is good if you want to run that. Shadow Claw. And really, that's mostly it. I mean, Power Up Punch can boost your attack, but really, you only have 2 really great attacks. You know, Earthquake is good too. You don't have really, in terms of a lot of great options here that, you know, you can throw out there and really do a lot of work with this thing. So it is kind of a struggle for me to suggest this Pokemon. You do get decent coverage, which is common for these dragon types. I feel like if you had a little more special, you could, you know, maybe do Flamethrower, make that work. Otherwise, you know, Sludge Bomb would work too with that. But otherwise, you know, this is a Pokemon that kind of is outclassed by a lot of the other ones that we've looked at so far. Now, you know, if it wasn't for that, you know, Dragon would be a great choice, but it's just kind of outclassed. Hydreigon. Now, here we have a great Pokemon that really needed a nerf, and I think Fairy typing was kind of the big thing that they did to nerf this thing because it's so weak to Fairy now. But other than that, you know, great special attack, good speed, even good attack at 105, and it does have decent bulk. With Levitate, it is immune to ground, which is actually really good, and it has good resistances too. Move pool wise, remember, I feel like this thing is best as a special attacker. You can do physical if you want, but you know, moves like Dragon Pulse, moves like Dark Pulse is great. You also get things like Flamethrower that gives you some coverage. Flash Cannon for some of those pesky Fairy types. You can throw Draco on this guy and he'll do well. And if you want a physical attacker, well, you can throw things like Earth or Outrage, Earthquake, Still Wing. If you really feel like you need that, you could probably throw that on there too. So, I mean, this thing does get some good moves, good coverage, solid Pokemon. Just keep in mind that you're so weak to Fairy, you don't want to get hit with those things. But yeah, solid pick. Dragonite, I feel like this is another really good Pokemon. 134 attack is good. It's got some good bulk. It might be a little bit slower than some of the other dragons we've looked at. But I feel like it's got enough bulk that it can actually do pretty well. Plus, you know, like all the other dragons, it has great move pool. And with this Pokemon, you know, you want to focus on attack, but you could probably do special attack for coverage too. So let's mainly focus on some of these attacks. When it comes to Flying Staff, Fly might be your best option, because otherwise you're running things like Wing Attack, which is garbage. But Outrage is great. Dragon Dance, you can boost up and then do a lot of damage with that. You also get access to some of these moves like Thunder Punch, Fire Punch, Thunder Wave if you want to slow down your opponent. Aqua Tail is decent coverage. Thunderbolt, Earthquake, we are Flamethrower, Stone Edge. You do get some decent options. I do think if you were able to get Dragon Claw, that might bring this thing up a little bit. Oh, you do get Dragon Claw. Yeah, so if you do get Dragon Claw, it does bring this thing up a bit. Unless you want to rely on Outrage or Dragon Rush. I think this is another solid pick, though. Dragonite can do so well on your team. It's got good stats, good move pool, solid Pokemon. And one thing to keep in mind, I mean, I haven't really mentioned it, but I feel like a lot of people should know that these Pokemon are late game evolutions. A lot of these Pokemon are. Some of them, like Flygon, you can get way earlier on. Tyrantrum you can get earlier on. So, a lot of these, like Goodra, Hydreigon, Dragonite, Salamence, Garchomp, you get the final form later on. You know, but they're still great Pokemon. Zygarde, we've already looked at Zygarde for the ground type, and I feel like I want to look at it again because it does bring some things that make it a good dragon type as well. Good defense, good attack, good special defense. It's got good speed, good bulk. It can hit hard, and it's got some pretty cool moves. So let's go ahead and look at some of these moves. Earthquake, of course, is a must on this beast. Outrage, but that's way later. So until you get to that point, maybe you know, Dragon Tail just for that stab. But yeah, you can also throw things on this thing like Glare to paralyze the opponent. Crunch is good. Coil if you want to boost up your defense and your accuracy, your attack. Remember, that's later, though. You get that way late game, so you're not using that as an end-game move set. But yeah, you get some good moves on this thing as well. I think what we've seen here shows us that the Dragon type, for the most part, every Dragon type has a place that it could probably fill on your team. great typing, great type interactions, great stats, great move pool on pretty much all of them. Dragon types are just so great, and that's the reason why they introduced Fairy, because if it wasn't for that, then dragons would just be so uber powerful, like they were in Gen 5, where they kind of struggled. So, if you like this, give it a thumbs up. We've looked at all the dragon types that you can get. Are you going to use a dragon type? Let me know down in the comments if you decide that you're going to. Which one are you going to use? Are you even going to, since, you know, they do evolve later on, or are you just going to kind of skip them? Give this a thumbs up, subscribe. I will see you in the next Pokemon video.